Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by RacerX, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by RacerX, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by RacerX.
Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. Excited to be here. Excited to be your host. My name is Luke Nessler. I am the CEO of Impact Media. And this show, if it's the first time you're tuning in, welcome. If you're joining again, man, I really appreciate you listening. This show is to bring you lessons and the stories of brands and how they grew those brands. How did they get attention and turn that attention into revenue? How do you use tools like social media? If you're gonna put a magazine ad in RacerX, if you're gonna put an ad in RacerX, what should it entail, right? How can you tie that into what you're doing online? How can you make those online interactions turn into customers? We try to bring as much knowledge to you as we possibly can while telling the stories behind iconic brands of the sport. We also bring brands onto the show that are still on the come up, that haven't quite figured it out. We talk about what they've done right up to this point, and then I try to bring my expertise to the table and lend some advice to them that might help. We've had an awesome response so far. Really appreciate everybody that has been listening. If you have questions that you want to get answered on the show, you can simply send me a direct message on Instagram. It's at Luke Nessler, Nesler. You can leave a comment on one of my posts, or the best way to do it is to shoot an email to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. We'll make sure we answer them on the show for you. Man, I'm stoked about this episode. We've got somebody pretty iconic on, and if you've ever been to Loretta Lynn's or watched online on Racer TV, man, you've seen this guy's brand clean house. We got Sean Hilbert from Cobra Moto on the show today to talk about what they have done since really growing the Cobra brand, and how have they done that, and now moving into an electric world, e-bikes, e-motorcycles. Believe it or not, Cobra is at the forefront of that. Right after several years of hard work at the AIM Expo in Columbus, Ohio, in 2019, I forget the month, apologize about that, they unveiled their first e-motorcycle and e-bicycle. We're going to talk a little bit about that. What are they doing to get exposure on the brand? And then what are they going to be doing in 2020 moving forward with the new e-motorcycle and e-bicycle coming into play? How are they going to continue to get exposure on that? Really excited about this episode. Hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for listening. Let's dive in and talk to Sean Hilbert with Cobra Moto. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. Today's guest is the creator of one of the most iconic brands in amateur racing, and somebody that I'm excited to have on. We have Sean Hilbert from Cobra Moto joining me today. Sean, how are you doing today?
Really good, Luke. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. It's exciting times in the world of cycling and moto, and you guys made some pretty groundbreaking news that I don't think the industry was expecting. I could be wrong. Definitely on the e-bicycle side of things, I think you definitely shocked everybody. But at the AIM Expo, you guys unveiled your newest products, the e-moto, which is the CX E5, and the e-bike, the e-bicycle, which is the Ironman. So really just continuing to push the envelope. So I'm excited to talk to you about that today, and really just get your take on what you and your team have done over the years to to grow the Cobra Moto name into what it is today, because it's one of the most respected names in amateur racing. So, man, I'm excited. Let's dive in. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So let's go. I like to go back to kind of the beginning with anybody and just quickly catch everybody up to speed. You guys started and were founded in 1993. So coming into the sport back then, what was that like? Like, was there a market for Cobra Moto back then, or did you guys very much create the market back in 93?
Yeah, so just to be clear, the current management team was not part of that founding group in '93. A guy named Bud Mamoni out of Youngstown, Ohio, was, and the story is a really good story. His kid raced the 50 class at Loretta Lynn's one year, and the way I understand it, he was basically, going through the third moto in position to win the title. And I think he was running a Moto Marina 50cc bike, which was legal in that class at that time. And there were Yamaha PWs, there were these Italian things, there were a few bikes that were homologated, not many. Most of them, in fact, all of them were recreation-oriented bikes that were barely capable to be on a motocross track. Anyway, his son was in the lead, and the points, and when I mean points, I mean like old car ignitions had points, had mechanical points that fired the spark plugs. The points went bad, and so he lost out on the title. And on the way out of the parking lot there at Loretta Lynn's, Bud decided that he could do better, and came back the next year with a homologated number of bikes. Several of the first Cobras were at Loretta Lynn's that year, and his son ended up winning the title on one. Beating the likes of James Stewart and a few other notables that were not on Cobras, and controversy ensued, but the brand got a big kickoff.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and that's it's written out on your guys' website too. That if somebody hasn't gone to cobramoto.com, they can do a little bit more research on it on there. It really kind of created its own marketplace. So I guess from the time that you guys came in and started to do your thing and really push the envelope, when was it that you came in and really kind of took over the reins, and how that came to be?
Yeah, so we took over really about 10 years after the brand was initiated in '93. We took over in 2003. And at that point in time, and to go back and address your initial question, Cobra really was the very first, what I would call race-ready automatic 50 in the world. It created a new white space it addressed a white space that was in the marketplace that just needed addressing. So that was kind of one of the groundbreaking things of the brand, is that it was a brand new thing. And so it obviously attracted competitors right away. KTM looked at it, a few other companies. LEM was a company out of Italy at that time. Saw this new marketplace opened up and jumped in right away. And by the early 2000s, Cobra was dealing with what was pretty much a one or two party show. They were dealing with a whole bunch of competition, and we came in at a time where we had some resources that weren't available to the company, engineering resources and financial resources that weren't available to the company early on, and we were able to help the brand take it to the next level, so to speak.
How did I guess the moto space in general, it's one of those things where if you have a quality product, especially if it is a race-driven product and it's at the races, whether it's a GNCC style race or if it's at the amateur nationals, it really kind of does itself as far as getting the attention and the exposure, especially when you've got multiple guys and gals that are out at the front of the pack. That kind of does its own thing. What were some of the things that you had to do early on when you guys took over, or if you even know of some of the things that were done before you kind of turning the keys over to you guys, beyond just creating a great product? What were some things that you saw had to be done to get the attention that turned into, obviously, moving product for you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because, and it's a perennial question for us, right? Every year we kind of ask the same thing: what can we do? What are we not doing that we should be doing to build our brand?
Mm-hmm.
And in this little market space we're in, we keep coming back, honestly, with the same answer, and that is win races. It's a marketplace that is dominated. The brand building is dominated by going out and winning races. And it's funny, I think in bigger bikes, certainly racing is part of the DNA of the motocross sales effort, right? You wouldn't have factory professional teams if that didn't matter. But I'm not so sure that it's much of a win on Sunday, sell on Monday kind of atmosphere with the big bikes, where it absolutely is with the little bikes.
Sure.
That's the one brand signal. That's the only brand signal that people have is the bike winning or not.
I think
so that's where we end up putting all our effort into, honestly.
I think that's something that has changed, to where I'll relate back to when I became a fan and I was a boy, was when Carmichael was really taking over the sport as a whole. Very much the reason I bought a Honda, my best friend bought a Honda back in the day, was because, Carmichael was winning on it. There wasn't social media, but now I think at the big bike class, it's this awkward, it's an in-between, right? If Eli Tomac had a Dean Wilson style personality online, I think Kawasaki's 100% would be selling more. I also think it's why people that might not be the most skilled, while they're more skilled than 90% of the population, they're, an Adam Entignap is nowhere near as skilled as a Joey Savacci, but I would say he probably can move more attention and eyeballs and arguably merchandise. Same thing with Adam with AJ Catanzaro. I do think there is going to be a time, and I think it's coming sooner than later, that's going to happen at the smaller bike class too. And I'll use the Deegan family as an example. If he had that popularity when he was young enough to be on a Cobra and was on a Cobra, I think you would see, and in the future when that person comes around, you will see, the results matter, but man, this kid's got 500,000 YouTube followers or whatever it is, and people are paying attention to him during the week and are wanting to ride the bike because they saw him ripping on his practice track on it too. I think, I know that is going to be a point. Have you guys thought about that, or have you kind of started to zero in on some potential riders that understand social media and have some type of a following, or has that really crossed your mind yet? Or do you disagree with me? Because that's completely fine as well.
No, I think so. You bring up many good points there. One of them is, Brian Deegan in particular is he knows how to utilize social media better than anybody I've come across. And I know there's other folks in other industries that use it really well, but Brian is a master of it. And literally to the point of creating a brand around his kid.
It's amazing.
The Boy brand is a brand within itself. And I'm sure he's scratching his head going, well, what am I going to call my other two kids? Or, so Hayden is certainly has a brand that's probably going to stick with him for his life in motocross anyway. That said, it's I don't know. We certainly recognize when families, and really it is the families that are doing social media when the kids are that age. We recognize the families that are really good at it, and those that aren't. And it to date, it hasn't yet moved the needle big time.
Sure.
It's still winning races, and I go back to our market share over the past couple of years at Loretta Lynn's. We've got in the 50 classes, we still are above, or I shouldn't say still, we are above 90% in entries at the ranch in those classes.
That's amazing,
and it's because of the product. I've said for years, we have three things that are important in this marketplace: product, product, and product. That said, there's many other factors out there. There's obviously pricing and distribution and the marketing piece, which I guess tags along with the product. But really, the product is what sets the brand for us, and then making sure that it's proven in the marketplace by kids that are winning. If we didn't have those two things, I think those are the 800-pound gorillas in building our brand, where it sits right now. But I also recognize it's a very engineering mindset, and I joke that I'm a recovering engineer. I don't have the brand building experience and expertise that a lot of people in this industry have, and I'm very appreciative of those folks that have that skill set. The KTM folks have just done a masterful job of building that brand. I've watched it, since it came out of bankruptcy in '92. I've been a student of how they've taken kind of a sleepy little Austrian brand and made it a global powerhouse now.
I think one of the things that I think you guys, where you're always going to have a leg up is, I mean, look, you make arguably the best product out there. And I think with branding, a lot of times it's people, I mean, even such as yourself, overthink it so much because they think it's just this science that it prohibits them from taking steps forward when really and yes, there is some art to it. I mean, in like our staff here, like I'm not discrediting them at all. Like they're very talented, but when it comes to getting started, it's a matter of, okay, where in the heck does my market pay attention? And my market is twofolded. It's the kids and it's the people that are going to be buying it for the kid. So it's, I'll use a really good example. I think it was Hudson Deegan. I'm pretty sure I already saw a YouTube video of him ripping around on KTM's electric moto.
He did. It was a great little video.
And I guarantee you, if they looked at the metrics of when that launched, or if they look at their official launch and how many kids are asking for it for Christmas or getting it for Christmas, that video and that family moved and will move product because people look at that brand as it's a good product, just like you guys, but they have that anomaly. They've got that shining star that is, now in this case it's a family, but it's somebody that has attention and performs on the track. So I think with you guys, it's a pretty simple formula. You've got the product. It's a matter of looking at, okay, anybody in our camp, the people, all these guys, all these little kids at Loretta's, just follow them all on social media. Does their mom and dad run their social media? Do they have a social media? Do they have a following? If the answer is yeah, there's 3 of them, then talking to them and explaining to them, look, this is part of our program with you. This is kind of what we expect. If you look at your entire camp and there's nobody on your squad that has given social media any thought, you're doing yourself and their family a favor by going to them and explaining, look, the value of a rider when you're now until the day you either make it pro or don't is not anymore just on the results. It's also going to be on the value that you bring to the brand off the track and help them start to understand the importance of growing a social following. You're going to have some kids that their family won't let them do it because of privacy reasons, and that's fine. But there are some kids that haven't started it yet that have interesting lives that can grow that awareness for you. I mean, you've got the best product on the market, in my opinion. And I think that all that's missing is finding that. I mean, the Deegans, yes, they've got the dad that won the X Games, and Brian's just this. But beyond that, I mean, look, everybody lives that life. Like, they ride on the weekends. It's a super sexy lifestyle that a lot of these kids could showcase something similar. It's just a matter of finding that in your camp, if that makes sense.
No, I think you bring up a really important point, and that is the kids that race motocross are very unique individuals. You know, it's how many 8-year-olds out there, in our case for our target market, how many 8-year-olds out there in any given elementary school race motorcycles or even have one? And the answer is very small number, right? So that sets them apart in ways that no other kid really is able to set themselves apart from their cohorts. And if the parents, and in this case it is the parents that do this, if they see that and understand that, and understand how unique and cool their kid is, they can develop that personal brand beyond belief. It's just we I don't think we do enough of that as a sport in general. We need to break out beyond the bounds of the sport a little bit.
Oh, for sure. And I think
about how cool these kids are.
The last point I can make, and I've brought this guy up in the last couple episodes, I promise it's not paid. A guy that listens to the show who asked a great question, his son, who he admitted that his son is not the most talented rider, but they have a YouTube channel to where they document their kids' involvement in BMX and in Moto, and his question was about how can he bring value to brands and for them to be sponsored. Well, here's the thing: even though his kid is not out winning Loretta titles, they get over 1 million views a month on their video. On their channel, they get I think he had 30 to 50, somewhere in that range of subscribers, and they get over 1 million views every single month. So you take somebody like that could hop on, which we're going to move into the Ironman and the CXE50. They hop on that and they're just like, man, this product is like, man, this bike is awesome, and the dad's talking about how badass the CXE5 is. You get 1 million views a month on that. You don't know that if somebody in Iowa is going to go buy that product because they saw that. So there's value in more than just skills now. You guys are winning on the track, so it's a matter of turning those kids or a portion of them into units that understand, hey man, my value is more than just results. But then also looking in finding those diamonds in the rough that kid. Vlog Epic is the name of his channel. He'll move product. If over 1 million people a month are watching his videos, they're captivated by him. He's what's called an influencer. And whether him and his dad know it or not, or brands like you guys have realized it or not, you can move product that way. It's just a matter of finding those right people. Let's move into the future. Where does electric bikes and moto, where does that have a place? And what is the future of that look like in the sport? Obviously, all the other, 2-strokes and 4-strokes are not all going to go away. But is electric the future, and is that why you guys moved into the market, or is it simply going to be another option that we're going to have in addition to the tried and true bikes that we're used to?
Yeah, boy, you're opening up a can of worms there.
Nobody will listen to this, so no big deal.
I've got a couple answers to that. One is that I hope it's not all of the future. I love the sound of motorcycle engines. I love the full sensory effect when you go to a motorcycle race of having sounds and smells and sights and everything else. So I'm kind of bummed that it may be the future because I like all that. That said, there's a couple things. One is from a legislative standpoint, in Europe in particular, Euro 5 is coming along, and our products might not even be legal in 2 years, let alone be the desired one. I mean, if you want to race a mini motorcycle, you're probably going to have to race an electric bike, just because the small 2-stroke car plant, one that can be made for a price that a young family is going to want to go, spend the money on and go racing.
Yeah.
That is going to be legislated out of existence, and so we need to keep an eye on that. And on the other side of things, I think the electric motorcycle makes a lot more sense in the junior market than it does in any other market for a couple of reasons. One is that you've got a product that you can essentially, it's small enough, you can essentially put a backyard track together and not bug the neighbors. So, you can essentially suburbanize the sport in many ways.
Yeah.
You can meter performance out very, very carefully as your rider becomes more skillful. You can, if you have 5 or 6 or 10 different levels of performance that you can meter out one little level at a time, it makes the barrier to entry of the sport way easier than somebody that wants to go jump from a PW50 onto a Cobra or another brand. And then And then finally, the noise. I mean, you got, granted, that's part of the backyard thing, but it's also a barrier to a lot of young kids. A lot of kids are just intimidated by how much noise the bikes make.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that, and I'll add one more into it, and that is the maintenance. The maintenance for an electric Mini is going to be an order of magnitude less than for a gas-powered bike. And again, you've got millennial parents that are coming into the sport. Many of them have, just they didn't take a lawnmower repair class when they were in high school. They it's a different world now than it was when I was coming up, and the level of abilities for folks to maintain these bikes has I've watched it. It's gone down, and that's a bigger barrier than what it used to be. And so having a bike that's easier to maintain, easier to own, has more riding locations that you can practice on, is less intimidating, is easier to grow with. I mean, all those things are going to be huge, hopefully, huge benefits to our marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think, my opinion on it, and this isn't necessarily the best comparison in the world, but I think it makes enough sense. I'm an avid cyclist. I ride Moto, but my what I've grown up racing is bicycles, and I've seen the infusion of e-bikes into the marketplace. I've seen the pushback and the resistance, and I've seen it take off in areas like in Europe. Do I think electric everything is going to replace gas-powered everything? No, I don't see any way in heck that's going to happen, namely because so many people were saying it's going to. I don't think that many people were right on anything ever. Secondly, I think it's just another option. It's like, when snowboarding came along, you weren't even allowed on the mountain with it. Well, I get looked sideways at when I'm riding on a mountain bike trail on an e-bike because people have this misconception of what it is. So I think that eventually it's just going to be another option that will be accepted. Now you go to the mountains and there's skis and there's snowboards. So there's both, and one is easier to learn than the other, and it's the same thing as in Moto. I mean, one's a little bit easier to learn than the gas-powered bike, but I think there's always going to be, look, I've got way more bikes in my garage than my wife would like. I have a mixture of e-bicycles and pedal, good old manpower bicycle, just a regular pedal bike, and I ride them both because they're different experiences. I think it's cool that a company, it is what it is. Cobra is small compared to, some of the brands like the Hondas and the KTMs, and the fact that you guys move so quickly, and I say quickly, you might be laughing saying, man, it's been in the works for however long. You guys pivoted so quickly to not just e-moto, but also e-bicycles. Why did you guys decide 2019, 2020 was the time that, hey, we're going to bring this to the market? Was there one specific reason behind that?
Yes, and I think that was probably, I'm going to speak for them. I think it was probably the same reason where KTM was at as well. We've had an electric bike in the works for the better part of 5 years.
That's amazing.
And it takes that kind of time to
I'm sure.
develop a new product. It just does. There's lots of details there. But when we first started out, just the battery, if we could, just the size of a 1.5 or 2 kilowatt hour battery, was in the $2,500 range. It was so the battery cost curve, and Tesla's helped drive this considerably, and so lawn and garden equipment, and everybody's using essentially the same cell. It's called an 18650 cell, but it's Tesla uses a slightly bigger one. But my point is that batteries have, as electric products have proliferated, the battery costs have come down dramatically, and battery costs are coming down at the rate of about 20% per year. And it's finally got to the point where they're not, to put a battery electric powertrain together, it's not that much more expensive than an engine right now.
Yeah.
Still a little bit, but it's not much. And so all of a sudden the battery cost curve came down to the point where we can offer a product in that marketplace that's priced relatively competitively with its engine counterpart. And until now, that wasn't the case. We were just kind of waiting.
What are you guys doing, or what are you going to be doing moving forward into 2020 to educate the marketplace? Because, I mean, again, it is what it is. Like I said, you guys have two products. You have the e-bike, which is a bicycle, and it's the Ironman, named after the GNCC EMTB final round of the year, which is at Ironman, which I think is pretty sweet. And then you have the Moto, which is the CX E5. What are you guys doing now and moving forward to educate the market, bring exposure and awareness to these new products? Because obviously you've spent 5 years developing it. Hey, it's time to sell. It's time to move the product. But we've got an industry that this is so new to. What does that look like as far as a marketing and branding approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. This is going to be a little bit not traditional branding the way you might think of it. But one of the things that we started on a couple of years ago that we've seen as roadblocks to bringing new technology into the motocross marketplace. Let's go there first. Has been more than one instance where a company has brought out a product that really didn't fit any rules. And the Honda 150F is a good example of that. Alta, their electric bike, is a great example of that. In both cases, the cart kind of came before the horse. Here was a motorcycle that came out, arguably both great bikes, but without a place to go racing. That they were constantly behind the eight ball in trying to get a marketplace developed for their product. So they might have had a great product, they might have had great marketing, they might have had everything lined up perfectly, except in our little tiny sliver of the world where you've got race machines that are marketed in a retail fashion and need to be homologated to a certain level, need to be approved for certain classes. That just didn't happen. It started to happen with Alta in that they were allowed to race in non-displacement classes like age classes and things like that. But they didn't want to be there. They wanted to be lined up at Anaheim 1 in the 250 class. And it just didn't happen because they got the cart before the horse. So one of the things that we've been working on is the rule book and making sure that there was a place, making sure that the marketplace was there before the product was available. And we did that in this case. In fact, we've been working with MX Sports and the AMA for the past couple of years in developing a set of rules. And we worked with KTM on that, but we wanted, from a pre-competitive standpoint, we wanted to make sure that the marketplace existed before the products were put on the marketplace, and that there was a single set of rules that we all could shoot for. And that worked pretty well. And so it kind of looked all of a sudden this year, wow, KTM's got a bike, Cobra's got a bike. It's all very sudden on the scene, but there's been a lot of work behind the scenes.
It's always, I mean, when somebody calls somebody an overnight success, they just chuckle because they know the work that was put in coming up to that. And I had a feeling that was obviously, I mean, everybody saw the announcement of, e-bikes, e-moto having a class to race in 2020, correct? Yeah, sure. And I figured that was no coincidence that, the timing of brands like yourself and KTM coming out and Husqvarna coming out with it, I mean, it makes sense. So it sounds like, and you guys are in that unique area that you can do this to where let's have a class that's fair for everybody. There's enough brands represented to where it's not just Cobra, it's a few different brands. Let's have a class. They're going to be on the track. People are going to see it. That's going to move product. Is that's the plan, at least starting out, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That adds excitement just in itself. And that's one of the conversations that we've had with the AMA, with KTM, with MX Sports is let's not make this a one brand class, but let's create some marketplace excitement out there around, two brands duking it out. And that's just going to add more flavor to the whole thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's to finish my thought, that you guys have that unique ability to do that, to whereas, hey, a handlebar company or a goggle company or, somebody that's not a 100% of what's winning the race, right? They're not riding the goggle. They're wearing the goggle. Those types of brands, and maybe for you listening, you might be more of that category. You're probably not a motorcycle or a bicycle manufacturer to where that's going to grab 90% of the attention. So yes, have your product and your whatever that product may be on the best rider possible, but also understanding that, okay, the race is today, but what's going to happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? How am I going to continue to get the attention of the marketplace? And I think that is where you guys have the most potential for growth in the coming years that you guys never had before, because you have the quality product. You've got a cutting edge product now that really nobody else has. Man, find some of those diamonds in the rough, like Vlog Epic, that you look at the numbers, you look at the metrics, you hit them up, and you're like, hey, can we take a deeper dive into how many people are watching your videos? How many are watching it all the way through? So out of 1 million people a month, man, 650,000 people every month are watching 100% of this. This kid's got some fans. Hey, let's see if he can move some product, and just experimenting with things like that. And I think, and I truly believe what you'll find is that does move product, maybe not as well as, winning titles and championships like you guys are doing, but definitely moves product.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think you hit on a good point. One is we're definitely a performance brand, but unlike goggles or clothing or something like that, maybe the marketplace doesn't recognize us so much as a lifestyle brand. And maybe what you're getting at is we need to do more of that lifestyle type of marketing to get that vibe going. We certainly have the vibe of our stuff works, and that's what our brand has been built on. But we probably could do a little better. I go back to you mentioned influencers. I was reading. I can't remember where I read this. It was some sports marketing article I was reading. That, Cristiano Ronaldo, who's arguably one of the top soccer players in the world, he gets $1 million an Instagram photo. He makes $1 billion a year just on Instagram.
Yeah,
and it's incredible. I mean, the amount of shoes he can sell from one photograph. So
yeah, it's those stories like that just show you how. I mean, it is what it is. Like Instagram influencers, it's a bubble, right? It's going to burst. So it's way overpriced in some areas. And it's also extremely underpriced, undervalued in some areas. And the moto market and even the cycling space, those are two markets that it's underpriced. You've got, I'm friends with, a kid that races at the GNCC EMTB races. His name's Seth Stevens. And his Instagram content is insane. And if he were a freestyle soccer player, he'd have Adidas and all these people just paying him tons of money, because you watch his content and you're like, man, that's pretty sick. I want to do that. And then you're going to buy a product from that. But, the only brands that have really attached themselves to him is a brand like Specialized Bikes. So in the moto and in the cycling market, it's very underpriced right now. You can get somebody that has a tremendous, it's going to cost you money to get a Hayden Deegan, but there are other people out there like Vlog Epic that have got mass amounts of attention and nobody's paying attention to them. Those are the people that any brand should jump on. Go ahead.
What those guys need to do is they need to put those metrics together.
For sure.
For folks like us.
Yeah.
They need to say, you mentioned watch throughs on the video, how many people started, how many people stand on for 15 seconds, how many people are watching the whole 3.5 minutes or whatever.
That's what you guys care about.
That's what we care about. More importantly, though, is their ability to click through. How can they measure the amount of business that they're bringing us? And those are, there's some folks out there that have done a really good job of trying to put those metrics together, but it's really the responsibility of, in your word, the influencer, to bring those metrics home, to say, here's what I'm doing for you as a OEM or as a goggle company or whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. And we answered that gentleman's question on Paul Parabinos's episode, but I'm going to go back to it because the point you make with, Sean just said, what's important to him as a brand that's looking at a potential influencer. And this could be an athlete. I mean, it could be, a Jeff Walker or somebody like that really wants to figure out how to maximize it. Another thing you could do is, talking to a brand like you guys and say, listen, I want to see if this is a good fit. Can we set something up to where I come to you, or we somehow get a bike to us? We do a couple pieces of content. We see how much traffic it sends to you, and we see if it makes sense. Like, you have to be okay with working for free to get something started if it's new. And I told Paul, I said, look, I had $1 million business and when I went to the Coombs family and Tim Cotter and all the guys at MX Sports and said, give me a shot at some of the nationals. And I did it for damn near free, way less than what I was charging our other clients, because I knew if I could just show them what we could do, it would work. And that's what really took off 4 years ago, which has led us to why we're working with so many moto brands. So personal brands need to understand, I've got to show Sean and Cobra the value that I can bring. And if it works, I'm sure they'll do something with me. And if I can't bring value, then, it's better than taking y'all's money and then you getting zero in return from it.
Yep. No, I agree. And the metric I mentioned, which was, the activation piece, the sell-through piece, that's really hard to get. So maybe the right answer is, listen, you guys are at 20,000 Instagram followers.
Right.
If I build that to 40,000, then what's that worth?
Yeah.
And so those are numbers that are really easy to grab and really easy to measure. It's just a matter of then how do you put a deal together at that point?
Finding what's valuable to you, and then you go to an X brand goggles or 100%. Like, for them, they're going to expect sales because they can transact online. But a brand like Cobra, obviously, you understand that. Look, this guy or this gal or this kid's probably not going to sell a bike for me from this video online. But how else can they help me? So it's putting those metrics together. And you got a lot of exciting stuff going on. I'm very excited to see everything that unfolds with the new class in 2020, and then just really seeing how you guys progress. And I can't wait to see the actual product itself. First year in 4 or 5 years, I didn't make it to the AIM Expo, and I was super bummed when I saw what I'd missed at your guys' booth. So I'm excited to see the product as well.
We used AIM this year as a pivot point for us to show off new stuff, and really we hadn't been there for a few years. The main reason is I believe that our presence at that event really is all about what's new and exciting.
Yeah.
If we have an announcement about a big new product, that's the best place for it. And so that's why we went, and it worked incredibly well. We've got so much traction. In fact, if you just do a Google search on CX-E5, there's 15 or 20 right at the top of the list there of all the different mentions of that new bike. So we were very pleased with how that all worked for us.
Yeah. It's exciting times, man, and it's cool to see you guys at the front end of just pushing the envelope and continuing to develop all of your products and put a winning product out there. Where can people follow you if you want to put your personal stuff out there, or where can they learn more about Cobra and follow you guys on social media?
Yeah, you bet. So on Facebook, it's Cobra Nation. On Instagram, it's Cobra Motorcycles. My personal Instagram is Cobra Sean, Sean. And what I try to focus on that's a little different than what the brand site focuses on is I'm a little more behind the scenes. So I'll take a look at what might, little glimpse into future R&D. I'll look at what's going on inside our plant if we're making something. So whereas the Cobra sites themselves are more about riders and the events and the wins and the product, I'm a little more behind the scenes stuff. So it's a big glimpse at a little bit of everything that's going on.
So this episode's going to come out before Christmas. Is the Ironman and the CX-E5 something that if a parent hears it or a kid hears this, is it available now, or is it not quite available for purchase yet?
I wish they were both items that could be under the Christmas tree. So the Ironman is we're currently taking pre-orders for that. We're getting close to being filled up on the first production run of that bike. But there's still available slots, and the first deliveries are going to take place in April. So that's going to be a spring product.
That's awesome.
For us.
So they can put a pre-order in. That's cool.
They can put a pre-order in right now.
That makes me want to have a child so that I can have an excuse to get one of these.
Well, in many ways, we looked at that marketplace in a lot of the same way we looked at the mini motocross market when we first laid tracks there, and that is bringing all of the features and benefits of a full-size bike or motorcycle down to the kids' market in a way that they've never experienced it before. And Cobra did that with the motorcycle. You have liquid cooling and disc brakes and upside-down forks and all those great things that the mini marketplace had never seen before. We're doing exactly the same thing in the e-mountain bike space, where it's a fully suspended e-mountain bike that's got all high-end, Shimano componentry and the whole 9 yards. The youth marketplace on the bicycle side has never seen that level of performance before. So we're trying to mimic the same thing that we did in the motorcycle marketplace in the e-mountain bike marketplace.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. I'm very excited about where the state of cycling and moto is, as far as having that option to use the electric side if you like that, if you're into it, or if you just want that option. So, man, I've enjoyed this. I appreciate you coming on. It's been really cool hearing just where your outlook is on everything, and you guys definitely have a unique approach to branding that other companies may not have and can learn from. And honestly, in some companies have to take a different approach just because their product is not performance-based from the standpoint of it's not going to win or lose the race for them. So super valuable. I'm grateful that you came on, and I look forward to seeing the product in person here soon.
So do we, Luke. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Awesome, man.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impact Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.